بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد يا عباد الله. To begin, we would like to send our congratulations to the bride and to the groom by saying Barakallahu lak wa baraka alayk wa jama'a baynakuma fi khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bestow blessings upon you and join you both together in good. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, marriage is from the signs of Allah Jalla wa Ala. As Allah Ta'ala, He says in His noble book, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. Allah Ta'ala, He says, and from His signs is that He creates from you mates, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so that you may live with her. Allah Ta'ala, He says, and from His signs is that He created for you all from amongst yourselves mates, so that you may live with her. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And Allah Ta'ala, He says, and He places between you mawadda, love and mercy. Affection, love and mercy is placed between the man and the woman, the husband and the wife. So we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He increases the both of you and love and affection and mercy amongst yourselves, and that you live to interact with each other in a good way, in the best of ways, in the best of manners. And inshallah ta'ala, this serves as an encouragement after having known that the zawaj, the marriage, is from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to all those who have yet to be married, to strive to get married, because it is something of extreme importance. As it comes in a hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, فيما رواه الإمام البخاري والإمام مسلم أي في الصحيحين حديث متفق عليه. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يا معشر الشباب من استطاع منكم الباء فليتزوج فإنه أغض للبصر والأحسن للفرج ومن لم يستطيع فعليه بالصوم فإنه له وجاء. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Ya ma'ashar al-shabab, singling out the youth, O youth. But this is applicable to the youth and to other than the youth. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he singled out the youth, because in most cases you will find the youth, they are those who have yet to be married. Ala kullin, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, whoever from amongst you has the ability to get married, then he should get married, because verily it is aghaddu lil-basar, it is that which will help you to lower your gaze, wal ahsanu lil-faruj, and is that which is better for the private parts. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, and whoever from amongst you does not have the ability to do so, فَعَلَيْهِ بِالصَّوْمِ, then it is upon him to fast. فَإِنَّهُ لَهُ وِجَاء, because it will be for him like a castration. عَلَى كُلٍّ, when one looks at this hadith, he finds that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he pointed out for us a makhraj, he pointed out for us an exit, a way out from the fitna of the eyes and the fitna of the private parts, and that is by marriage. As the Prophet ﷺ, he explained that the marriage is what? It is that which will help you to lower your gaze and to guard your private parts. Naam. So we find that the first way out is the marriage. Naam. And for those who don't have the ability, those who are restricted from this particular way, then it is upon them to fast. But the fasting is that which takes a back seat to what? To the marriage. If they can get married, then they are to get married. Because marriage is that which is better for his sight, is better for his private parts. Marriage is that which by way of it he will be completing, and she will be completing half of their religion, as it comes in a hadith that has been made or graded as being Hasan by Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullahu ta'ala. As the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, إِذَا تَزَوَّجَ الْعَبْدِ, that when the abd, when the slave, he gets married, فَقَدْ اسْتَكْمَلَ نِصْفُ الدِّينِ, then he would have completed a half of his religion. نِصْفُ الدِّينِ, half of the religion. فَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهِ فِي النِّصْفُ الْبَاقِ, so fear Allah in that which remains. So fear Allah in that half that remains. To show the importance of the marriage, and so that we completely understand how it is half of our religion, the ulama, they explain, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has guaranteed the Jannah for the one who safeguards and protects two things. For the one who safeguards and protects two things. As it comes in a hadith that has been narrated by our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, where she said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man hafidha ma bayna lahyayhi wa rijlayhi dakhala jannah." Hadithun sahih, as it comes in Sahih al-Jami', where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that whoever safeguards that which is between the lahyay, that which is between the jawbones, meaning the what? The tongue. Whoever safeguards that which is between the jawbones, meaning his tongue, and he safeguards that which is between the legs, meaning the private parts, then he will enter into Jannah. So the one who utilizes these things well and in the right way, then the Prophet ﷺ, he said that they will enter into the Jannah. The ulama, they say, when you look at this hadith, two things are mentioned, and from those things, the safeguarding of the private parts. And marriage, it takes care of that. It takes care of one of those two. It takes care of half of that. So therefore, this is how marriage is half of the deen, and we ought to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to the rest. So with this being the case, we have to know then what is the proper way of safeguarding this blessing in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has bestowed upon us. What is the way to safeguard the marriage and to enhance the marriage? It is to know, ya ibad, that first and foremost we have to be fulfilling the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This takes precedence over all other rights, because you will find that if the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are established, then every other right will subsequently thus then therefore be established. And if you find that the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are infringed upon, then do not have hope in the establishment of any other right outside of that. As we know, for an example, the animals have rights upon us. That we are to be kind to the animals. We are not to abuse them. If we have them as pets, then we are to take care of them. We are to feed them, and the like. If an individual does not have any fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's going to save the cat who's in the house with the evil one? If the individual doesn't have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will the cat have as a defense against the evil one who intends for him evil? But if you find an individual is fearing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he will feed the cat. He will give the cat water. He will be gentle and nice to the cat. Why? Because he fears his Lord. Because he knows that his Lord has made this as an obligation upon him. So therefore he will be vigilant in fulfilling the rights of this animal. Naam, for the sake of who? For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So likewise now, if we were to ponder on this example, and we were to look at the relationships that we have amongst ourselves, we will find that everything is enhanced when it comes with the tawheed. And everything that is lacking in tawheed, it is that which is corrupt, it is that which is spoiled, it is that which is ruined. So if we implement this now, and we do everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we make sure that we are establishing the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then by default we will establish the rights of our spouses. By default we will show to our spouses that which is the best. Why? Because we will understand and we will know that this is something that we will be rewarded from by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we are obeying him and fulfilling the rights of the spouse in which he has made obligatory upon us. So if we want to have a successful marriage, like any other relationship, like any other part of our existence, then we have to be establishing the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you will find that all other rights subsequently will thus then therefore be established. This is important, and this is something that we must be reminded of, because this is the fact in which we were created. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, and I did not create the jinn nor the mankind except to worship me, meaning to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And Allah ta'ala, He says, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. Allah ta'ala, He says, and they were not commanded except to worship Allah sincerely, alone, establishing all of the religion for Him. Those who are hunafa, those who intentionally establish the tawheed and intentionally run away from the shirk. Ala kullin, if we want to have success, we have to be establishing the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then therefore you will find that all of the other rights will thus then therefore be established. Now it is important that we know, and important that we understand, and that we learn and we study exactly what are those rights that each other have upon each other, so that we may implement them. Because الفاقد شيء لا يعطيه كما قال العلماء, because the one who is deprived of something, he will not have the ability to give it. So if we are in fact and indeed going to fulfill the rights of each other, then we have to learn, we have to study. So therefore we understand that that the house has to thus then therefore become an environment of learning, an environment of education, the education of the book and the sunnah. Because in order to establish the rights that Allah Ta'ala has upon us, we have to study. In order to establish the rights that the Prophet ﷺ has upon us, we have to study. In order to establish the rights that the Sahaba have upon us, we have to study. And likewise, in order to establish the rights that our spouses and our children and so on and so forth have upon us, then we have to study. Naam, so that we know exactly what to do and how to do it upon the best of manners. So the house then therefore has to be an abode of studying, has to be a place where the Qur'an is read, has to be a place where the Qur'an is studied, has to be a place where the Sunnah is read and the Sunnah is studied, has to be a place where you have therein durus al-ulama, not a place therein that is like a club where you have the music playing, not a place therein that has destructive things for the family, because the repercussions of such will be destructive upon the relationship, will be destructive upon the family. But it has to be a place that is filled with ta'ah, because from the purpose of marriage is so we can help each other go to the Jannah, not that we may be facilitators in each other's destruction. So it is important that we know and we understand this, and that we go with the right intention, and we seek to increase, we seek to enhance, to enrich the lives of our spouses by helping them to obey Allah, by helping them to be upon the sunnah of Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is something of extreme importance. If we want success, this is what we have to be striving to do. And we have to know and to understand that we are all different. We all don't like the same things, and we're going to butt heads, and we're going to differ, and we're going to argue from time to time, that there will arise amongst us differences and arguments. So I advise each and every one from the two, and everyone who is married, and everyone who is seeking to get married, to know and to understand those things in which your spouse may dislike, from the things that are mubah, of course. Now, to know and understand these things, and to avoid these things as much as you are able to do. To not to do anything to try to intentionally aggravate them or cause them any type of distress. To give to them that which you would like that they will give to you. To treat them in a way in which you would like for them to treat you. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه وفي الرواية من الخير, that none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And in one narration it mentioned from the good things. So we mean that none of you will truly believe until you love for your brother from the good that which you love for yourself. Now, so treat them in a way in which you would like to be treated. And if they're going to arise, if there arises fitna, if there arises argument, if there arises differing, then you have to return that back to the book of Allah and to the sunnah of his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As Allah Ta'ala, he says, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي الشَّيْءِ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. And if you differ in anything, then refer it back to Allah and refer it back to his messenger. it is important that we understand the likes of this ayah. فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ, then refer it back to Allah and to the Messenger. Because Allah Ta'ala, He says in this ayah, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ, and if you differ, فِي شَيْءٍ, in anything, if you differ in anything, despite what you differ in, despite the magnitude, despite the extent, despite how big it is, what subject it may be in, and so on and so forth, refer back to Allah and His Messenger. Because you will find that in Islam, you will have the answer for everything. Islam has the answer for everything. So regardless on whether this is a differing that occurs inside of your worldly affairs, or this is a differing that occurs inside the deen, and the like, refer back to Allah and His Messenger, and you will find an answer. You will find an answer, you will find a solution to your situation. And it is incumbent that we do this. It is incumbent that we don't try to take the answers and the seeking of solutions upon ourselves to try to come up, to strike up, and to make up an answer and a solution when we already have the answer and the solution inside of the book and inside of the sunnah. So the more you find that we stick to this, then the easier it will be for us to solve our problems. The more you find we stick to this, the better our relationships will be with our spouses. The better our relationships will be with each other. And in general, when we apply this, the better our relationships will be across the board. This is something that is important. It is something that, unfortunately, we may not necessarily hear it every day. And thus, it is something that is incumbent and is a must that we remind each other of. That we have to return everything back to the book and to the sunnah. When we differ, we have to return everything back to the book and to the sunnah when we are seeking and embarking upon something that we want to do, so that we make sure that our actions, our statements, and our beliefs and everything coincide with the book and coincide with the sunnah. And this is the only way that we know that we will be upon that which is correct. This is the only way we can fully nurture and fully establish this beautiful bond of marriage. This is the only way that we can fully nurture and fully establish our existence as a whole. So it is a must that we would be reminded of the likes of these things. And this is the small advice that I wanted to remind myself first and foremost, and then I wanted to remind everyone who's hearing my voice, and in particular the bride and the groom on this festive day and occasion. We wanted to remind them of this, because this is a reality that will be with them for the rest of their lives. This is the reality that will enhance their lives. So inshallah ta'ala, هذا فنكتفي بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.